This week on Vaticano, for the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we take a look back at Pope Francis's countless appeals for peace and all that the Holy See has done on the ground in Ukraine to provide aid to the victims of war. We then interview a former Attaché to the Holy See's Permanent Observer Mission to the United Nations in New York to learn how the Holy See places the centuries of knowledge accrued by the Catholic Church at the disposal of the United Nations to assist it in pursuing peace and justice around the globe. And lastly, we travel to a little-known shrine in the hills of Italy to continue our series on the history and devotion to Our Lady of Good Counsel. Vaticano starts now.
Быстро, ребятки, быстро!
On February the 24th, the first anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a prayer vigil for the victims of war was held in Rome. Among the faithful, also Cardinal Angelo De Donatis participated in the prayer vigil, together with the Exarch of the Ukrainian Catholics of the Byzantine Rite in Italy, Bishop Dioniso Lakovic.
I believe peace, first and foremost, is for everyone. And if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, peace should be something that everyone should. And so the message of peace should carry across the world for everyone.
Cardinal De Donatis stressed that he doesn't want to resign himself to the fact that there are no solutions for real peace. The path to reconciliation is difficult, but possible with God's help, the Cardinal said. Refugees from Ukraine also came to the vigil.
So for me, as for Ukrainian, it's really important to feel that here in Rome, people are concerned about what's happening in Ukraine, and it's really important that not only Ukrainians will come, but also people who think that it's important to support Ukraine and important to pray, because sometimes we feel that maybe we can't do a lot for Ukraine. We don't know exactly people from Ukraine, but I think that prayer means a lot, and if we unite with one aim, God hears us, and it works a lot. I have a lot of friends in the front line, and they always say that God is present in war. He is listening to our prayers, so I'm happy that in Rome we can gather together and ask God for peace and for victory.
Papal representatives have been on the ground in Turkey and Syria, providing aid and comfort to victims, as rescue operations are now giving way to long-term recovery. A massive earthquake hit southern Turkey and northern Syria on February the 6th, leaving more than 46,000 dead. Hundreds of thousands of apartments were destroyed in the 7.8 magnitude quake, which was followed by several strong aftershocks. Countless people are still missing. In the last weeks, Pope Francis has repeatedly offered words of comfort to the Turkish and Syrian people.
The love of Jesus asks us to let ourselves be touched by the situations of those who are tried. I think especially of Syria and Turkey, of the many victims of the earthquake.
On February the 16th, the new Turkish ambassador to the Holy See, Ufuk Ulutaş, presented his credentials to the Pope, who at the time offered his thoughts and prayers to the noble Turkish people in this moment of so much pain. Archbishop Claudio Gugerotti, the new prefect of the Dicastery for the Eastern Churches, traveled to Syria and Turkey from February the 17th to the 21st. He undertook the trip to express the Holy Father's closeness to the people severely affected by the recent disastrous earthquake, and to meet with bishops, Caritas workers, and other agencies committed to bringing aid to the suffering. On Thursday, February the 23rd, in a meeting at the Vatican with monks and priests from Eastern Orthodox churches, Pope Francis relayed his message of solidarity with those suffering in the war-torn and earthquake-struck Syria. More than 1 million people were left homeless in Turkey alone, and the UNHCR representative in Syria estimates that over 5 million people need shelter assistance in Syria. This number only increases the large number of people already displaced in the Middle Eastern country. According to the World Health Organization, about 26 million people have been impacted by the disaster. During Lent, Pope Francis has invited all the faithful to be spiritually and materially close to the earthquake victims in Syria and Turkey.
Hello and welcome to this week's Vaticano Updates, the most important news from Pope Francis and the Vatican. Pope Francis dedicated the first full week of Lent to spiritual exercises. Now, the Vatican said that the Holy Father had invited cardinals living in Rome, as well as the heads of dicasteries, to participate in the Lenten retreat in a personal way, from February 26th to March 3rd. The pontiff had no official appointments during that week. In an apostolic letter, Pope Francis reaffirmed that the property and assets of the Holy See are ecclesiastical public goods, not private property. Now, the document on the inherent right of the Holy See to acquire temporal goods reinforces the Pope's centralization of the Holy See's finances. Pope Francis said that Vatican trials for cases of grave financial mismanagement have become unavoidable in recent years. He told a group of Vatican magistrates that the facts about the conduct of those involved makes the trials painfully necessary. Now, the Vatican is currently prosecuting 10 people, including Cardinal Angelo Becciu, on charges related to the institution's finances. Now, the trial, which began almost 2 years ago, is expected to conclude before the end of this year. Pope Francis told the Pontifical Academy for Life that it faces an enormous task in evaluating the ethics of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence. Now, the pontiff asked the Academy to ensure that scientific and technological growth is responsibly reconciled with the values of conscience. Now, in his speech to the Academy, the Pope also warned that technology cannot replace human contact. Now, the Holy Father approved a miracle to advance the cause of canonization of Elisabetta Martinez, who was an Italian nun and founder of the Congregation of the Daughters of Santa Maria de Lueca. Now, the miracle involved the healing of an unborn baby girl in Rimini, Italy. Martinez died in Rome on February 8th of 1991. She was declared a venerable servant of God by Pope Francis in 2021. Thank you for watching this week's Vaticano Updates. My name is Benjamin Crockett for EWTN Vaticano.
We'll be back after a short break with more on Vaticano.
Perdonaci la guerra, Signore.
Forgive us for war, O Lord.
Gesù Cristo, Figlio di Dio.
From the very beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Pope Francis has condemned the war, praying for it to end.
Lord Jesus, born in the shadows of bombs falling on Kiev,
Kiev,
have mercy on us.
abbi pietà di noi.
But the Church hasn't stopped at prayer and spiritual support.
siate saldi nella fede.
On both the diplomatic and humanitarian levels, the Holy See has launched its own offensive to ease the plight of the Ukrainian people and bring a stop to the violence. The day after the invasion, in an unprecedented breach of diplomatic protocol, Pope Francis went to the Russian embassy to the Holy See to plead for peace. Many other initiatives for peace have followed. The Secretariat of State has used its representations around the globe to advocate for a peaceful solution to the conflict.
Especially in our days when we are seeing a lot of conflicts everywhere, starting from the war in Ukraine, which is very object of great concern for everybody. I think that diplomacy is a way just to help to promote and enhance peace in our day.
Cardinal Pietro Parolin partnered also with Italian President Sergio Mattarella to launch a new version of the Helsinki Accord from 1975. At the height of the Cold War, most European countries committed again to the inviolability of borders and peaceful resolution of conflicts. The Church has also provided humanitarian aid.
Did you feel a sense of hope when you saw that?
Many organizations, such as the Knights of Columbus, Caritas, or the Pontifical Mission Societies, immediately launched appeals to help refugees and those affected by bombardments in the country.
In modo particolare il popolo ucraino.
While Pope Francis has repeatedly voiced his wish to go to Ukraine, he's had to send his papal almoner instead. Cardinal Konrad Krajewski is in charge of delivering aid in the name of Pope Francis. He has traveled to the war-torn region several times to bring help directly from the Holy See. EWTN Vatican correspondent Colin Flynn has traveled twice to the country to document the plight of those who have remained.
Despite the fact it was very hard to continue working, living, study and so on, I decided that the best decision for me was to continue the life.
For us, the time of war.
EWTN Ukraine hasn't stopped broadcasting from Kiev, where Father Alexander and his team made sure to bring the news to all the Catholics of the country.
Maybe there is some tension in the heart, some fear in the heart of people, but at the same way we try to trust that God will help us, especially also during these days.
We are trying to understand why it's happened for almost 1 year on this terrible phase of war.
Peace still seems far away, as the Ukrainian ambassador to the Holy See points out.
Even in 2 days before the war, I said, no, it's impossible. From any rational point, it's something incredibly unrealistic, but it's happened. And in this way, I am always trying to respond for the challenge of possibly installing the peace. I believe that in some way, we cannot say right now exactly, but in some way it will come soon. I really hope, and a lot of people are praying for that.
Several times recently, Pope Francis has again urged an end to the horrors of war. But even after a year of fear and violence, the prayer for peace is yet to be answered. The Holy See mission at the United Nations in New York is focused on communicating the centuries of experience the Catholic Church has accrued and placing this knowledge at the disposal of the United Nations to assist it in the realization of peace and justice.
Holy See, since
During the Pope Benedict XVI funeral coverage that we conducted in January, we spoke with Father Roger Landry, who formerly served as the Attaché at the Holy See's Permanent Observer Mission to the United Nations in New York from 2015 to 2022. He helped us understand more about the Holy See's unique role in the United Nations.
I was honored from 2015 to 2022 to work at the Holy See's Permanent Observer Mission. All the embassies that exist at the UN are all called missions. They're all sent by their capitals there. And the Holy See, since 1964, has had a permanent observer mission. The UN, back in 2002, wanted the Holy See to become a full member.
Wow.
John Paul II decided to keep observer status so that the Holy See's neutrality, trying to help everybody, would be able to be more effectively maintained. But the Holy See's there as a state, not as a religion, and we bring to all our work 2,000 years of Catholic social doctrine and the lived experience of Catholics all throughout the world to the dialogues, to the problems, sometimes even to the crises that the world faces. And so we're there to try to live out the Church's mission of serving all people everywhere.
And Father, in terms of, like you said, just with that 2,000 years of history, of continuity and of perspective, what makes that unique?
So when the Holy See is there, we're really not there with national objectives. Most countries have political objectives that can change every time a government changes. The Holy See's there with premises that are millennial. And so when we bring those premises to the debates, they recognize that we're trying to get to the heart of justice rather than individual national advantage. And so that's always a help. The second is, some people joked at the United Nations that the Holy See was the third biggest country there after China and India, because we basically represent 1.3 billion Catholics throughout the world. And so that global experience likewise influences the service that we're able to give to the community. When Paul VI came in 1965, he compared the work of the Holy See and the Catholic Church to the work of the United Nations, saying that the United Nations is Catholic. It's trying to serve all people everywhere, just like the Church has been doing with a 1945-year start.
And if I may ask, when the Holy See gets involved in something in diplomacy, what does that look like when you...
So at the United Nations, the Holy See got involved in the actual discussions all the time, because though we were a permanent observer, there were only 3 limitations to our work, and one of those limitations was not that we couldn't negotiate. So we're very active. About 30 countries are regularly active in the negotiation, and so we bring what we like to call the light of Catholic social teaching to the darkness that's being confronted by the United Nations. And when we do that, a lot of the times we're able to be peacemakers when you've got countries that don't talk to each other, when you've got regions that are competitive against each other rather than cooperative, that we're able to bring our the experience of what it means to play global twister, where we've got body parts on every continent in the globe, that we're able to bring that experience and that perspective to questions so that we're able to help the world transcend national interest to what we would call international common good.
During your time there, what did you do? What was your work like?
I was very busy there. I was brought in originally to help plan from our end Pope Francis's visit to the United Nations in 2015. So I was up over my head with that, Ben. And then I helped with a lot of the speeches that we did there. I ran our internship program, in which during my 7 years we had 139 interns from 39 different countries. I was called inside the office, the chef de cabinet, trying to make sure that everything else ran. I was the executive director of the Path to Peace Foundation, which makes possible a lot of the work of the Holy See mission of the United Nations. I negotiated on various issues, including the scourge of human trafficking, which was a big priority for Pope Francis. And then I did whatever the nuncio to the United Nations asked me.
Thank you so much, Father Landry, for being with us today.
Great to be with you, Ben.
Thank you.
In a few moments, we'll be back with more on Vaticano. Last week, we visited the sanctuary Mother of Good Counsel in the Italian town of Genazzano, south of Rome, home to the iconic image of Our Lady of Good Counsel and site of pilgrimage for countless saints and popes throughout the centuries, all coming to ask the Blessed Virgin Mary for advice.
Maria, che consiglio può dare se non quello di seguire?
What advice can Mary give but for us to follow her son Jesus? Because that is Mary's role. She must lead us to Jesus because he is our salvation. He is our redemption.
Lui la nostra redenzione.
This week, we traveled to the little-known village of Venere in the Italian region of Abruzzo to visit a sanctuary that holds the same name as that iconic image, Sanctuary of Our Lady of Good Counsel. We'll learn about the history of this hidden shrine, its relationship to the sanctuary in Genazzano, and how it has held its community together during times of hardship.
The community of Venere is very connected to the sanctuary, so much so that they see it as the symbol of the town, and consequently, we as an administration keep very close to the sanctuary's message.
Venere, Venus in English, is one of Abruzzo's many small villages with a simple and rural appearance, but its history holds tales of ancient glories. Near the tower that now overlooks the town of Venere, and where the present shrine of Our Lady of Good Counsel now stands, discoveries have been made dating back to 150 BC, announcing that a temple to the goddess Venus has been erected to celebrate the peace between the peoples of the region and the Romans. During the Middle Ages, Venere became an important military garrison, and in 1187 provided soldiers for the expedition to the Holy Land, organized by King William II and Pope Clement III. In 1581, the present shrine of Our Lady of Good Counsel was built on the same site as the old temple to Venus. Papal bulls of the 17th century show the presence of churches in Venere that are described by Giovanni da Segni and reported in the volumes of Ferdinando Ughelli's book, Sacred Italy. However, the devastating earthquake of 1915 destroyed everything in the region and killed more than 30,000 people. Father Tonino Spanalate, who's rector of this sanctuary, took the time to speak with us after an eye operation.
Il santuario, purtroppo, come tutto il resto del paese,
The shrine, unfortunately, like everything else in the area, was destroyed by the earthquake. In fact, until the beginning of the 1940s, the older generation would tell us that the only part of the shrine that was left standing was the alcove with the Madonna. The Madonna has never been moved from this alcove, and so they built a little wooden church around that alcove, and people used to come on pilgrimage inside this little church.
quindi la gente insomma veniva in pellegrinaggio dentro questa chiesetta.
After its reconstruction in 1949, the small shrine was once again a deeply felt religious landmark and the destination for pilgrimages in the area, due to the oral tradition stating that pregnant women and countless children were saved and healed under the protection of Our Lady of Good Counsel. Unfortunately, since its renovation in the 1990s, it's become a victim to acts of vandalism, sacrilege, and desecration.
Atti vandalici parecchio, perché se lei ha visto pure su cosa è stato pure ultimamente.
We have seen quite a lot of vandalism lately. We are now forced to lock the church. Otherwise, in the past, it was just locked with an old key, and anyone who wanted could just turn the key, open the door, and come inside to pray. However, this is no longer possible because of the vandalism. They broke the glass that we put in 2 years ago. For all the goodwill we have, we barely have the time to repair it, and then they go ahead and smash it again.
Non fanno a tempo a riparare che loro sfasciano, come devo dire.
Like in Genazzano, the Madonna of Venere is given a special title. But what is the significance of the unique title, Our Lady of Good Counsel, that has caused thousands of pilgrims to travel by foot up the hill to seek Our Lady's advice?
Io mi riferisco all'iconografia della Madonna.
The iconography of Our Lady is impressive. If you look carefully at her face, she has her son right next to her, but she doesn't look at her son. She looks out at those who look up at her, we, the faithful, at her feet, and Our Lady is looking directly at us. This is very beautiful. I say this because she really follows us with her eyes. Then Our Lady's arm bent towards the baby Jesus. With her hand, she points at her son. And then the advice. What is the advice that Mary gives us? It is to go to her son.
Maria, è quello di andare al Figlio.
Under the gaze of this unique Madonna, countless pilgrims have sought refuge and advice. This ends our series on the two sanctuaries that share a common devotion to Our Lady of Good Counsel. While both sanctuaries have had very different histories, both are testaments to the power and witness of the Blessed Virgin Mary, who had many difficult decisions to make in her own lifetime. In honor of Our Lady of Good Counsel, Pope Pius XII composed a powerful prayer to her that recalls her intercession for those facing difficult decisions.